Bulbasaur. So we did it, and I thought, oh, I'll probably never see those people again. They were very nice. And now here we are 20 million years later.
I'm moving to LA. But knowing I had to give up those roles was really hard.
Begin as a storyteller. Now, the people who listen are ready to hear it.
You're watching convention coverage.
Why don't you do some? I obviously introduced your names already, but if you don't mind, we can. Roger, what do you do in Pokemon?
Well, I've been the narrator of the show since it began, and there was a short interruption when a producer and I got into a tiff about whether or not I should come back and do a replacement line of a trailer I had recorded for one of the Pokemon movies, and he said, I'm not paying you. So I said, well, I'm not doing it. And that's what led to the hiatus. What was interesting was the fan reaction to that, which was basically, bring them back.
Woo!
Come on.
The fans have
You know what helped?
spoken.
When they gave up the contract. And it went back to TAJ Productions. So, what can I say?
All right on. Well, I'm glad that all worked out.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Megan?
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm the original Nurse Joy in Pokemon.
And of course, Tara.
Hi, Tara Sands. I talked a lot in Pokemon. The one that most people care about is Bulbasaur. But I was like, oh, there's a Bulby back there. Oh,
So cute.
Are you guys actual
Cool.
Bulbasaurs? Oh my goodness. There's actual Bulbasaurs in the audience. So I was lucky enough to do over 50 roles in the original, the first 8 seasons, and just talked a lot. Yeah.
Right on.
Back in the original days, they would try to get as much out of us as they could. So if they knew we could do more than one voice, they'd be like, all right, we're going to fill the hour. Thank you, sir. We're going to fill the hour we booked you for. Can you do a little boy? Can you do a girl who sounds the same age as Nurse Joy but nothing like Nurse Joy? Can you do a mother, a child, a baby, a bear, another Pokemon?
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun.
I mean, how much of an hour can you fill just saying Bulbasaur?
You'd be amazed. I mean, honestly, it's a good question, but because we were so tied into matching the lip flap, it could take a while because they're like, no, you know what? His mouth it was just a gritted teeth in the middle of that whole run, and all of a sudden you're like, Bulbasaur, sure, Bulba. You know, like it's much more tedious than you think, which is why I get asked like, hey, why didn't they just use your voice over and over? By people who are kind of rude sometimes. No, I'm just kidding. But it's a good question. But then hopefully if you watch it a little more carefully, you realize, well, it's not a consistent mouth flap. Sometimes it's like this, sometimes it's wide open and it's 7 seconds. And then, they're like, oh, in our data bank, we have a 2-second Bulbasaur, and luckily they needed us to do it most of the time. They had a weird rule in the early days on the show that if you had 10 Pokemon reactions or less, they would just pull it from a data, they would try to make it work and not pay us, but they don't do that anymore, luckily.
I have to say, I never appreciated how hard you worked until I did a Pokemon. I figured,
You were humans, you played humans.
I always played humans,
Yeah.
and I thought, it'd be so fun to do a Pokemon. You just go, Bulbasaur, 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 Bulbasaur. And then I was cast as Morpeko in Pokemon Journeys, and oh my gosh, it's so much harder because there's no script that tells you when the Pokemon's mouth opens. So you're just like, you're watching and you're like, I got this, oh, there it went, I missed. Oh, I only made 2 syllables? Oh, okay.
Lisa Ortiz is the director. You guys have worked with Lisa, right? Lisa Ortiz?
I have to say something about Lisa. Lisa began as one of the characters.
Yes.
But what happened with Lisa, by the way, I think she's a wonderful, intelligent woman. I mean,
So
I
good.
can't tell you or praise her anymore. She approaches directing by looking at the assets of the performer, by listening to what they do, and by helping them do what the character needs based on how she reads the performer. And it was so incredible to be directed by her because it wasn't so much a direction as it was an inspiration. So if you want to know about somebody who's plugged into Pokemon,
Yeah.
Well, her eye-
here's Lisa.
Yeah, well, her eyes catch what Megan's talking about. Like, her eyes catch the nuance of the Pokemon themselves. She'll be like, "You missed the little tiny flap that we know." I'm like, What are your eyes doing that mine? She's amazing. Yeah.
She's watching everything you do.
Yeah.
That's
It's
what she's
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What was your guys' reaction to finding out you got when you first got the roles?
I was so excited. It was my first paid acting job. When I started acting, I had resisted it for a long time because I like stability and health insurance and stuff. And so I just assumed I would never get paid. I'm like, I'm just doing this for love. It's going to be awesome. I'm always going to have my day job. And then they offered me money to do it. I was like, what? I could get paid for doing something I love? I was just beyond excited. And also to get into the voiceover world that I had never even been. I mean, I was aware that people did voiceovers, but I didn't know that I could be one of them. So it was an incredibly exciting time.
You sure are.
Yeah, so like Roger, I had done commercial work before Pokemon, but I don't think I ever auditioned for Pokemon. I think they got my demo tape somehow. So I went to that first day on the job, and it was my first anime job ever. And all I knew about Pokemon was that it had given some kids seizures in Japan. Right? You guys remember that?
Right,
It was all
right,
over the
right.
news. So that's all I knew, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess they're trying to make that here. Okay. And I was there playing a role named Melanie in episode 10, and I was excited that I had this cute girl that I got to voice, and I thought, oh, well, this is exciting. Hopefully, I didn't know, but it was clear that they were leaving her at the end, and then we finished a little bit early, and they said, hey, since you're here and we're done early, you see that little, like, bluish-greenish guy with the bulb on his back and the little round blue guy? And they're like, let's try those. I didn't realize that was the real gift they were giving me. And I just thought it was a weird show. And then, so I said, well, what does it say? And they said, it says Bulbasaur. And I said, what else does it say? And they said, that's it. And I was like, good luck with this show. I was like, this is weird. So basically they said, like, hey, sound like the Japanese, but instead say Bulbasaur. So we did it, and I thought, oh, I'll probably never see those people again. They were very nice. And now here we are 20 million years later. So that was my reaction. I was like, this is weird. Yeah, I was wrong. Don't ever let me work in development. I would be terrible.
I probably would have felt the same way you did.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
like-
I think,
it's-
well, I
it's
always
like,
say this to you
okay.
guys. Like, you guys, probably most of you here saw Pokemon for the first time as children. So you just bought right into it. Imagine seeing Pokemon for the first time as a cynical New Yorker adult. Right?
Yeah.
Totally. What is your
I think for me it was, I had done the narrator coming out of the 60s and 70s, that character. That character was a guy that you've heard 1,000 times in films from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. He's the narrator, all right, and
I was like, well, I wasn't
Now-
alive in the 50s and 60s. So.
I didn't believe in doing narration that way. And that got me work in the business. When I heard the Japanese narrator's intros, that was how he did it. But my concept of the narrator, based on my own experiences, you have to be a human being. You can't be this person who's doing the same intro the same way all the time. So we developed the habit of looking at the first few moments of the show. Then I would do the intro based on where the emotion was going to start. And that's what I think every narrator should do. Now, an announcer is just a person who announces, but a narrator is a storyteller. And if you begin as a storyteller, now the people who listen are ready to hear it.
Oh.
Yeah. A lot of people ask about how to start as a voice actor. And I think most of us say you have to start by acting. And you just illustrated that point so beautifully, because anybody could walk in and read words off a page and be like, I'm a narrator. But to be able to make the choice, well, what kind of narrator are you? And what are you narrating, and how do you feel about it, and what are you bringing to it? And what happens next? Where is this going? Where has it been? Like, being able to ask all those questions and make choices is why we go to acting school. Also, you meet great people and you have a lot of fun and you learn about life. But practically speaking.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
When did you guys realize that you guys had a hit? That it was as big as we knew it was after the first few episodes?
Well,
I've
I
s-
think
you go,
that
sorry.
the coverage was so good because the stateside anime folks thought, I mean, Japan had already proved itself, but they hadn't had anything as big as Pokemon hit. When Pokemon hit, everyone went, how did Nintendo do it? Well, who knows? But I have a theory about that. I don't know if any of you have seen Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey on educational TV. He also wrote a book by the same title. And the theory in mythology goes that every culture has a mythology that celebrates the work of a hero. Is George Washington the hero of the American Revolution? Is Jason the hero who found the Golden Fleece? Is Ash a hero in the age of anime? For the stuffy people, they say, oh no, he's not a real hero. But in today's world, you damn well better believe he is. And the show proves it.
Absolutely.
I think, and I know we've talked about this, we knew that the show was doing well because we would see the TV guide covers
Exactly,
and all that kind of stuff, and my cousins were watching it. But when you're recording in a tiny little booth with just one other person or a director, like two people, and again, there was no social media for people to tell us how much they liked it. I don't think we fully grasped it until we saw the movie on the big screen at the Ziegfeld in New York. And all of a sudden, we see it with an audience of kids going crazy, with people waiting online. I mean, I know for me it was like, oh, I'm part of something important, and it was such a really lovely, a lot of us were able to be there together, and we all like each other, which is so nice. And to me, that was my aha moment.
Yeah, same. It was that night at the Ziegfeld and seeing, I can still picture like the crowds outside the theater.
Yeah.
And the excitement in the air. And yeah.
You guys were talking about how the respect was for voice actors back then. Did that make you guys feel like, hey, I actually have something that I've got leverage, you know what I mean? Or was it still kind of rough going after that?
It was still rough going at the company, but it was our hook, as you said. It was a way to get other work. For me, I was able to get an agent and start auditioning for other work, which is how the industry goes.
And here you are.
I think the show brought
Good
in,
spot.
Top.
We're so lucky.
Yeah.
the show brought in a lot of beautiful people.
Yeah.
It's true. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And I mean, again, for all the nonsense and the good and the bad that we went through back then, to be able to meet all of you guys now and travel the world and meet people who watch the show is worth every difficult thing that we
Hear,
dealt
hear.
with.
Yeah,
So
we're so
thank
lucky.
you guys. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
What exactly happened, like with Mai Valentine and Mokuba, and why were one of you allowed to come back and the
Okay.
other one was not?
I've answered this a lot, so I wish it was like really dramatic and we could be like, we had a fight, and Megan and I moved to LA. And it was at a time when it wasn't real easy to dub to video from far away, and 4Kids didn't have a studio in LA. So when we both moved, we knew we had to give up whatever roles we had. So it's not like big and dramatic,
I begged a little.
You did?
Yeah,
I didn't
was
beg.
like, you can do this from LA, and but they would have had to pay for another studio, which was not going to happen.
No.
It was never going to happen.
And then, sorry, go on.
Yeah, but it was really hard. Like, I knew for me at that time, moving to LA, I had family there, it's where I wanted to be. But knowing I had to give up those roles was really hard. It really made me sad.
Yeah, sure. How could it
Yeah,
not?
so to answer the second part of your question, my role was taken over by Carrie Karanen, and your role was taken over by Erica. Carrie also moved to LA. So then, years later, when Dark Side of Dimensions came out, they were like, oh, either we recast Mokuba again, or we get a studio in LA, and they just kind of reverted back to the original, because Carrie only did like one season. Her replacement still lived in New York. So you kind of got unlucky that your replacement didn't move. This is all like behind the scenes, just businessy stuff. There's not like, oh, we don't like this. It was never dramatic like that. In fact, there's a third Mai Valentine that we just learned about.
Yeah.
That only was in the uncut dubs that were released on DVD of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that was Kathleen Delaney. So 4Kids, I do a behind-the-scenes podcast called 4Kids Flashback, because there was so much craziness and interesting stuff that went on behind the scenes. And in the interview with Kathleen, we learned about that stuff. And I'm just uncovering these stories that have been fascinating.
Yeah.
And Roger,
That was a 4Kids story too. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to know, because we were under a contract with 4Kids that we had already moved, but we were not allowed, because of a clause in our contract, to continue when it went to TAJ. How were you able to do that?
Because he let me go.
Because you had already walked.
And by the way, I wrote them a letter and had my attorney write them a letter saying, you have breached my contract because you did not give me proper notice. That got me out of any obligation to honor. He was I won't mention his name, and I don't think it bears, anyone can research and find out, but you don't mistreat actors. And when you do, you get less.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
And what's a shame is people learn that lesson the hard way over and over. But when, coming back to Lisa, when you have a good director, when you have a good production company, it's not even work anymore. You're entering in another world where you can have the most fun, even as a not character. As the narrator who opens and closes the show, it gives you the opportunity to begin the emotional journey.
Yeah.
So that you're not just dropped into the show with and now, here's Pokemon.
Yeah.
But it's, and now, here's the show. Or something's really fun going on in, let's name a town.
Palette
How
Town.
about Palette Town?
Well, you always sound like you care. Like there's there's something about your voice that is so special in that introduction that we believe that you care about Ash. There's Ash right there. There's a real life Ash Ketchum. And I mean, yeah. So I'm meeting Roger for the very first time this weekend. After all these years of hearing, I'm getting like emotional hearing your voice, and it's nice that you're a great guy too. Like, you've been so sweet and charming and lovely, and what a shame if you were like this jerk with this sweet voice, you know?
Yeah, exactly. There's a few of them around.
Yeah. So I hope that answers your question. Sorry for the long-winded, yeah.
You know, one more element of that is when I did move, I mean, it wasn't just about me deciding I needed to do something else. This was a company that gave me my start in voiceover, right? But there was enough distrust there that I didn't feel like, oh, I owe them something. And in fact, our jobs weren't secure, right? We could have been fired at any time. I did a show called Cubics for them, and thank you.
Oh.
And I ran into the director, and I'm like, hey, you haven't had me in a while. And he's like, well, actually, they replaced you. And I'm like, oh, you could tell a girl. And then a couple weeks later, they called me in. And I said, what gives? And the director said, oh, yeah, the woman they replaced you with went on tour, and so they said, just get Megan back. So this was the sort of level of respect and professionalism that we were working with. So when I said I was going, they weren't like, oh, no, fans will go crazy. They were like, okay, bye.
Yeah, there were like three different Chazes on Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, again, in doing all these interviews for the podcast, Megan's story is not unique, and I think it toughened us up as actors. Like, we got a thick skin from it.
That's a really good point.
Unfortunately. I mean, again, you know, you go into this business because you love it, but there's also the business side of it.
I was just going to say real quick, probably with the early internet age back then, the fallout of replacing voice actors wasn't as big because it's like,
Yeah,
oh, a bunch
exactly.
of 10-year-olds will be upset. Oh no, what are they going to do? Write angry letters?
Yeah, well, they underestimated.
But,
I think that they underestimated the kids and their need for consistency with those voices. It comes up again a lot at our tables, and they ask questions like, "What happened? Why did you leave?" Like my 8-year-old ears were so just thrown. You know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Was it the Pokemon Company that took over after 4 Kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, they, at one point, someone was talking to them, and they still denied that people cared.
The Pokemon Company, Nintendo set up Pokemon USA as the company to manage that entity.
Yes.
They made deals with various production companies to do the show. I'm surprised the amount of hands-off that was going on, because there were, I don't think 4 Kids did a good job with Pokemon. And I was disappointed. I was actually glad to be out of there. But that's another story. Let's keep it on the positive upswing here.
But out of all of your roles and people you've worked with, who is your favorite, if you don't mind me asking?
You know what? Actually, one of my favorites to work with, again, one of, because I can't, is here right now, Tony Oliver, who is a voice actor, but he's also an incredible director. I can't actually say what I'm working with him on right now. But he's awesome. He directed me as Bisky in Hunter x Hunter. Just really smart director, knows the biggest thing is because we work alone in anime especially, we need a director who understands the scope of the episode and the project, because we don't get to see it. We don't get even if we get a script, we're jumping around, we don't get it till we're in the studio, so we don't have time to read the script. So we just put a lot of faith in our director. So Tony is a great example of someone like that.
One of the people I love working with, even though we don't work together and at the same time, is Veronica Taylor. Veronica Taylor and Rachel Lillis.
Yes.
I learned so much by listening to them. I actually, when I auditioned for Pokemon, he had me audition for like all the female characters. And I didn't understand the direction until I heard Veronica and Rachel do it. And I was like, wow, that is so cool. In terms of other actors I admire, Anthony, whose last name I don't know, is here, who was the voice of the little boy in Coco. And thank you. And oh my gosh, is he a terrific actor. An absolutely terrific actor. He did such a good job in that show.
Are you going to fangirl when you meet him?
I already met him.
You
and
did?
I was just real cool. Oh, I saw that. No, I wasn't at all. I told him I just think he's absolutely fantastic. And I mean, this sounds so easy, but Tom Hanks can do such great things with his voice.
Oh, yeah.
He's just amazing.
I got into the voiceover business in a very peculiar way. I was wondering, how the heck am I going to break through? And up until that time, I've been doing technical work. So I got a job fixing the chem editing table, a horizontal editing table where you put film on its side and you roll it through picture modules and sound modules, and you edit the actual rough, a working copy of the film, which then is edited. So I went to a place called Kaleidoscope Films on East 57th Street and met a man called Don LaFontaine. Perhaps you know who Don LaFontaine is, because in a world without Don LaFontaine, it wouldn't be much of a world. He gave me my first demo tape. He made it. We just hung out. I couldn't believe the generosity of this man. And there are so many people in this business that have been so kind to so many other people. That's the reason all of us are here.
Yeah.
Because of those wonderful people that they had nothing to gain, and they helped other folks. It was beautiful to me, beautiful. He's gone, but certainly not forgotten, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Thank you.
One of the greatest
play.
trailer voices ever.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
Forget
God.
about it.
What lesson do you think that new upcoming voice actors should be thankful that they don't have to learn the hard way like you three did.
I mean, I think there's just a new set of challenges that come with entering the business today as opposed to when we did many years ago. They don't have to necessarily drive and get to, all across Los Angeles or take subways all across New York and worry about getting to the studio on time, since so many of them have home studios. But you're competing against a much bigger talent pool now than we were, because in the old days we would go to a studio for an audition and maybe there were 20, 25 people, and now they put an audition out online and they get 2,500 submissions. So there's it's just a different set of obstacles today.
I mean, I feel like the only thing people new to the business don't have to do is have their demos printed out on
Cassette tapes?
cassette tapes or CDs.
Yeah.
That's a lot easier.
I think that when you think about how voiceovers have evolved, I remember I started out doing voiceovers in the open reel days for an audition tape. Then it went to cassettes. Then it went to CDs. Then it went to, and is now MP3s. But what are we up against? Pardon me. Excuse me. We're up against AI.
Yeah.
We're up against the world talent pool. But the other thing is, when you have the cachet of doing what we've done, that's one good thing. A second, pardon me, I don't know why my nose is running, but a home studio is critical. I set mine up in 2002. And what was interesting about that was I even suggested to the big voices in the city, why don't you get a home studio? And they said, well, I'll get it when I need it. Well, it came along. And so all of these super talented, super successful voiceover guys, I even helped one set up a home studio. He couldn't learn the equipment because as soon as you go to home technology, if you can't get your computer to function right, there's something wrong with Pro Tools, whatever it is, you're out of the business. But with a home studio, it made it easier for me because I do a lot of not Pokemon stuff, but boring old business stuff, like instructional safety tapes, corporate structure. I've even I would even do a voiceover where you show up at an annual meeting of a company, and you do the speech that the CEO does, because he sounds like this. And he comes on and takes his bows, but voiceover work is varied. The thing is, you've got to also have a hook. If you've done Pokemon, that's a hook. And the more of these little quirky things that you have are great, but the one thing that will sell you more than anything else is a superb demo tape that shows your versatility, your fun, and maybe even your love of the business. Because if I want to work with somebody, it's going to be somebody who loves it as much as I do.
Thank you so much.
Well said.
All right. The anime studio Science Saru is doing a new Ghost in the Shell series. And my question is, if they were remaking some series, maybe from back in the day when you're starting, or something, a dream job you've always wanted, what is that series or character you'd want to play?
I would love it. I would love to do Yu-Gi-Oh! Again. And there's apparently the manga that's never been animated, so I would love to see that come out.
Yeah, season 0 of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Season 0.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Oh, that was really loud. I would love to do Slayers. I don't know if it's an old school anime, but it's almost an identical cast to Pokemon.
Lena Envers.
Lena Inverse. Again, a cast with Eric Stewart and Veronica Taylor and Lisa Ortiz and you're in Slayers? No? How did you avoid Slayers? Michael Sitter Nicholas, who's here, was it? The cast is awesome. But we were all really super young when we did it, and I'd be so curious. And I don't know how the quality of it holds up anymore in terms of the visuals. So I would love to revisit it and give it another go and see, with maybe updated animation or whatever. I'd love to try it again.
It's got a very 90s style animation to
Yes.
it, but it is still a solid show. It's still
Does it
funny to
hold up?
watch.
Okay.
It holds up.
Okay, so maybe we shouldn't redo. Oh, Crispin Freeman is in it. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we shouldn't undo it. I take it back.
Maybe there can be a
But it's out there in media land. How are you going to get it back?
Right? Well, see, that's the thing is like when I watch early episodes of Pokemon, I hear myself learning. So there's so much from those first, and I still feel like that. I don't like to watch myself, but there's so much I'm like, oh, I sound like I'm trying to match the mouth flap. I wish they had given me 2 more takes because then I could have eased into it. So it's a bummer to me that so many of you have seen me, footage of me learning how to do my job.
You know, what's interesting about dubbing a film from a foreign language into English, it's more than the lip flop. It is how do you preserve the culture of the language spoken as an American actor who doesn't know anything. And I think what helped me, not so much with that work, because I kind of wouldn't take it if it wouldn't work. But I remember when Pokemon just started out, and this is somewhat unrelated to your question, but it relates to the connectivity of how do you get in sync with the story. The scripts were top secret. You were given a paper, and it was taken away, and you know.
Yeah.
The last few years of Pokemon production, we got the script. The end of every script was a summary of the story. So if you got the script, you could read the summary of the story. You knew what was going on.
my gosh.
You could look at the opening, actually see the words, see the direction that was suggested in the script. So if they had started that from the beginning, just trust the actor.
Yeah.
Now I have all the scripts from the last 3 years. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's because I have a home studio, and when came along, hey, weren't nothing going on in the studios no more. Anyway.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right on. Well, that's actually perfect. That's kind of our time for now, but thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
being here.
guys.
Thank you so much for being at SAC M&A. Thank you guys for being here.